If you had a garden, yeah, a garden, what would you grow?
If you want to see Europe, take a vacation in Virginia.
Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, where roller coasters rage, yet it's more than an amusement park.
In the theme park game, you're one of three players. You're either Disney, Universal,
and then there's the other guys.
Stop humming that song!
the Six Flags, the Cedar Fairs, the Sea Worlds. While each of these guys are huge players in their own right, they have nowhere near the level of money that Disney and Universal do. They can't just drop hundreds of millions of dollars on a single attraction like it's nothing. Because of this, smaller parks often rely on locals to make their money, rather than tourists. However, despite these limitations, there still seem to be some parks that stand out among the rest, and in some cases even give the Disney and Universal parks a run for their money. And King's Dominion in Doswell, Virginia is not one of those parks, but Busch Gardens Williamsburg is. And that's what I'm talking about today. What is it that makes this park so special? It's beloved by enthusiasts and the general public. It's been voted most beautiful theme park 29 years in a row as of recording this. What makes Busch Gardens Williamsburg such a great park? Is it the theming? Is it the food? Is it the roller coasters? Yes. Yes to all of those things. I know I'm showing my bias a little bit here since this is my home park, but this place really is great. I've been coming here ever since I was a little baby boy. This place is my stomping ground. I know it like the back of my hand. And no matter how many different parks I go to and read about, Busch Gardens still ranks as one of my absolute favorites. But lately, there's something new that I've taken notice of at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Something truly unique that sets Busch Gardens apart from the majority of its competitors. It's not just about great rides, fantastic theming, and good food. A lot of parks have that stuff. What makes Busch Gardens so special was there all along. I'm not trying to be metaphorical or anything, it's terrain. We're talking about terrain. Terrain. It keeps planets from being smooth, boring spheres. We can climb mountains, we can sled down hills, we can get trapped in a ravine and have to cut off our arm after being in there for 127 hours. The point is, terrain is one of the things that makes our planet so fun to explore. And it's something that theme parks can utilize to make their rides and attractions more interesting. How so? Well, consider this example. On the right side, we have a roller coaster that was built on a flat piece of land. There's no integration with the terrain in the area whatsoever. And on the left side, we have a roller coaster that's the exact same model, but it was built incorporating the terrain in the area. While these coasters achieve similar heights and speeds, the experiences they provide are very different. On the right side, you're kind of just flying above the ground like a bird. It's cool and all, but there really isn't that much else to it. Meanwhile, the coaster on the left is bobbing and weaving between scenery and terrain features. The coaster is full of near misses and flybys. It makes you feel like you're going faster because you're closer to the ground. Uneven terrain can often shake up a ride experience in a way that catches riders off guard and surprises them. There's roller coasters that have a second drop that's bigger than the first drop. There's roller coasters that seem like they're short but are actually really tall because of the terrain that they're on. And if there is any park that knows the value of using terrain to your advantage, it's Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Nearly every roller coaster at Busch Gardens Williamsburg utilizes the uneven terrain to make each experience unique, and it all stems from the park's naturally hilly terrain and even a river. For example, Apollo's Chariot has a height of 170 feet, but a first drop of 210 feet, because it rests on uneven terrain. The Big Bad Wolf closely hugged the terrain that it was on to give the riders a greater sense of speed as they went through the course. And a few other coasters, like Verbolten, are able to have higher drops than they would normally be able to have because they dive and follow the curvature of the Rhine River Valley and make their way towards the water. Each of these roller coasters was custom built for the land on which they sit. They cannot be replicated or relocated. They are completely unique. I said completely unique. Thank you. But terrain doesn't just improve an experience on a roller coaster, it also improves the experience of just walking around the park. If you've ever been to Busch Gardens before, you'll notice that there's quite a lot of hills. In fact, before you can even get into the park's entrance, you have to walk downhill because the majority of the park is at a lower elevation than the areas outside of it. This, along with the many trees and plant life, help to keep guests from seeing what they're not really supposed to see, like show buildings, areas meant for staff, and most importantly, the land outside of the park. Because Busch Gardens Williamsburg is themed as a fantastical version of historic Europe, seeing anything American and modern like highways, factories, and residential areas can end up breaking the immersion. But because the park lies on uneven terrain and is surrounded by trees, it makes Busch Gardens Williamsburg feel like its own little dimension, cut off from the rest of the world. Now, I know some of you are thinking, wait a minute, how is this so special? Disney's been doing this kind of stuff for years. And it's true. If you go in and watch the design course hosted by Walt Disney Imagineering, highly recommended by the way, it's really good, you can just see how much effort is put into designing the rides and lands to make them more immersive. And one of the main ways they do it is man-made terrain. If you've ever been to a Disney park, you know that they love their mountains. Disney parks use terrain in the same way Busch Gardens Williamsburg does, to make their attractions more interesting and to make guests feel as though they've entered a completely new world. The key difference here, though, is money. Disney will start from scratch when they're making a new park. However, designers at parks like Busch Gardens choose to work with what they have. Most theme parks reside on a flat piece of land because it's easy to develop and build for, and they just don't have the money to terraform the landscape to their liking. Parks like Busch Gardens, however, see potential in natural terrain and have gone above and beyond to take advantage of it, despite the fact that it makes things a little bit difficult. In Anton Clavé's book, The Global Theme Park Industry, he discusses how theme parks need to be designed to handle large amounts of people. You need large paths, bathrooms, places for people to sit down. As you can imagine, that's a little bit hard to do when you're working on uneven terrain. On top of that, with terrain like this, people with disabilities might have trouble navigating the park. Dealing with uneven terrain can sometimes be a massive headache for designers, but Busch Gardens has decided to stick with it because they know the value of it. They know that using the natural terrain and plant life greatly improves the park's aesthetic, and they will jump through hoops to make sure the park can handle large crowds and be accessible for everyone while still preserving the natural terrain. And that is what makes Busch Gardens so special. So with that being said, let's ask this question one more time.
If you had a garden, yeah, a garden, what would you grow?
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. This is my second big theme park video. Ooh, maybe I could make this a recurring thing. If you guys enjoyed it, feel free to let me know in the comments, and even make some suggestions if you want to. I'm really glad I got the opportunity to make this. I've had a ton of footage just sitting on my phone from various parks that I visited, and I'm glad I got to put it to good use. And before I sign off, I have a little bit of a call of action. Try to do some research on your local park. Try to learn something new about it. Who knows, you just might learn something interesting. Anyways, I'm gonna peace out. I'll see you guys whenever I see ya.
Whoa. That's a thick boy. That's a unit.